Hello YouTube, watch lovers, watch collectors, and everybody else who decided to join me today. Today we will talk about this somewhat controversial topic. There are some heated discussions on YouTube and Facebook and so on among members of watch collecting community about what is considered to be homage and what is replica, and are they both legal or not, and is it okay to have one of those watches, or is it not okay? We'll try to discuss it today, and I'll share with you my point of view, of course, which is somewhat based on what I heard from you as well on YouTube and other social media. I learned a lot of things from you guys and formed my own opinion about it, and then I'll share with you some of my thoughts here, okay? But before we jump into that, I'll show you what I wear today, and this is my Citizen Eco Drive, which I purchased about half a year ago, and I'm still very happy with that. Okay, now I came up with a bit of a table here where I decided to express a few points on the differences between homage and replica here. From everything that I learned so far, I can see that there's a certain consensus on homage watches being acceptable. It's just a matter of taste, whether you want to have any homage watches in your collection or not, or if you do want to keep any of those, great. If not, at least it's legal. And speaking about replicas, as you can see here, first item on the list for homage, difference between homage and replica is that homage is inspired by the original design or the design of original watch, and replica is a total counterfeit of original watch. Homage watch is usually produced by legal business, and it is legal to own and service one, and it is totally opposite in case of a replica. It is usually done by illegal business, and because there's infringement of copyright involved and all those things, and it is, as a result, it is illegal to own and service one. If you are to bring one to a legitimate serviceman or watchmaker, they may, I heard, refuse to service the replica watch, and perhaps even report you to the police or something. I don't know, but anyway, so in case of homage watches, you usually dealing with a completely different brand that looks like an original, and that borrows some of the ideas of the original design, but it's its own brand. And in case of a replica, the brand is usually exactly the same. It's spelled exactly like an original. For example, it says Rolex on the watch, and they're trying to pass a counterfeit timepiece as a legitimate Rolex, which, no surprise to me that it is illegal, because the copyrights infringement and many other things, why it is not cool to own one. And therefore, at last, coming to the last point, there's no shame of having the homage watch in your collection, and it is my opinion. I don't have any of those in my collection yet, but if I will like something in the future, I will certainly be more than happy to purchase one. While speaking about the replica, I would say it is a shame to own one. I would be ashamed, for example, to own a counterfeit Rolex and then pass it on to my son or something. I would have never done that. I think it's kind of a no-no in the watch community, and it's completely understandable. Here at the bottom, I show to you a couple of examples of how the movement inside of a legitimate watch may look like, and exactly the same watch being counterfeited could look like this inside with the spacer around the movement, because the movement as usually is used a cheaper movement, the cheapest they could find, and as a result it doesn't fit the size of the original watch, and they have to use the spacer. That, speaking about spacer, that doesn't mean that every watch that has a spacer is a counterfeit. Of course not. There are a lot of companies that are using their in-house movements for bigger size watches, and they have, in those cases, they have to use spacers to accommodate the the movement within the larger size case. But if you open the Rolex, for example, or any other extremely expensive brand, and see a spacer inside, that's a good sign of that watch being counterfeit, no matter how good that watch is looking from the outside. Okay, so that's my point of view on it, and I thought it was worth sharing that with you. If you have any thoughts, please share them with me on in the comments section below. And now I will share with you a few of the examples of Homage versus Replica. Here you can see the Rolex Submariner, the famous Rolex Submariner on the left, and it is an original watch. And you can see how the Squally watchmaker borrowed majority of the design of that watch on their timepiece on the right, and it is an example of a very successful homage. Although I will talk about Squally at the very end of this presentation. I don't know, to be honest with you, why would they do such a thing, produce homages, because they actually have their own designs, very nice designs. Why would they do such a thing as an homage to Rolex? I have no idea, but they probably do have some followers of that, and people are happy to have that. And this is another example of the same Rolex Submariner, but being counterfeited by a replica watch, as you can see here. And you can buy that replica watch for 1/100th of a price of Rolex, even online. But just remember that there are many online websites where you can buy replica watches, and they don't even make any secret out of the fact that it is a replica. And but just remember that by doing so, you are financing the illegal shady business, and support them. I don't know if you want to do that. Here's another example of Rolex GMT Master, being an homage of that watch produced by a company. They don't even show anything on the dial here, but I have a feeling it is one of those Chinese companies like Parnis, for example, and they literally just copied everything except for showing any signs of Rolex or something here. And again, it is in 1/100th of a price of an original piece. While here you can see a one-to-one copy of or an attempt to produce a one-to-one copy of an original Rolex GMT. See the writing over here at the bottom of the dial is exactly the same as it is over here, but if you look closely to the bezel here, the numbers on the bezel are slightly different. You know, look at these two and these two. They are hugely different. and 22 here and 22 here. This is how you can usually spot an and a replica. And there are other things you will notice, and if you open the movement and notice there is a spacer in it, that would be a good indication that you are dealing with the replica watch. And most importantly, there's no way you can buy a $10,000 watch for $100 or $200 or even $300. Nobody would sell you that, so obviously somebody is selling a counterfeit. Here's another example of Rolex Explorer. You can see that the Peter Lee company here basically copied everything from here quite nicely, except for, you know, they don't try to pass themselves as a Rolex. It's a Peter Lee company. It says automatic here, stainless steel, water resistant, and so on. Other than that, the watch look almost exactly identical. And here's the same watch being produced by counterfeiters. In this case, they did the writing on a bezel and everything quite nicely, and it's hard to even differentiate which one of them is original and which one is a replica. But again, the price point would give it up there. Here's Rolex Yachtmaster, where you can see an original on the left, and the Polaris company borrowing some of the ideas of that design on the right, and they don't hide that or anything. They just produce you know, a more affordable watch. How reliable that watch would be compared to Rolex, I don't know. Most likely less reliable because it's just a fraction of the price, but nevertheless, if somebody likes the look of Rolex Yachtmaster, you can have one for 1/100th of a price. And here is the counterfeit Rolex Yachtmaster, produced in an attempt to produce exactly the same watch. If you look very closely, you will notice that the crown over here and crown here look slightly different. The numbers on the subdial over here at the bottom at 6 o'clock on the original, and subdial over here, these look bolder than this here, and I'm sure if you will go through some of the details both of these watches, you will notice many other things that do not correspond one-to-one there. Here's Rolex Sky Dweller, being copied by the company called Bleger or Bleger out of China, and they borrowed some of the elements of the design here, but didn't go to the trouble of, you know, copying everything. Like our markers on the original, you can see, are just lines here, and here is the completely different approach, and so is the bezel on original is this kind, and here they used a different bezel, but that's the same, more or less the same idea and look and that is an Homage watch. While here you can see a replica watch of exactly the same Sky Dweller, but it says Sky Dweller over here, but as you can see, it looks slightly differently on a replica here. There's a red square over here on the original at 12 o'clock, and there is nothing here on the counterfeit timepiece, and these Roman numerals here. Well, there is a different type of hour markers on the original, and so on. Panerai Luminor, the original on the left, and excuse me, the Homage on the right, where the company even doesn't call it Luminor, they call it Luminous Marina, and that is the Parnis Chinese produced watch. They copied majority of the elements in this, but it is still an homage of a famous brand. While here you can see an attempt of producing exactly the same watch. The only difference between the original and the replica here is the material of the case. And also here on the Panerai at 6 o'clock you can see 8 days, and here is no such thing here. But hey, if the person doesn't know how the original looks like, they will buy that. Here's the IWC watch on the left, and Homage produced by Parnis company out of China. Here you can see the majority of the elements are used here in this watch here. While here you can see a replica watch where they attempted to do exactly the same timepiece, although if you look at closely at the push buttons here for the chronometer, you will notice that they look differently on a replica watch. And I'm sure you will find some other things which are not exactly the same. Excuse me. Another example of Breitling Bentley. There's an original on the left and the homage on the right, produced by Jaragar company here. A pretty much one-to-one copy of an original watch. And here is a counterfeit piece where they attempted to do one-to-one, and how successful they were, I would leave it up to you to decide that, but the price point will give it up, of course. And here's the item I wanted to talk to you about. I'm surprised that, for example, Squally is doing the the homages of the famous Rolex Submariner, and even any kind of homages, to be honest. Well, they have the capability of producing their own designs and their own watches of completely original design. Look at this. This is a beautiful timepiece on the left here, and they have many others, and people are very happy to own one. While Homage gives up the Rolex Submariner here from the first glance. And why would the company do that? I have no idea. If I were them, I would have never done that. Never borrowed somebody else's ideas in design to such an extent as they did here in this particular timepiece on the right. Anyway, so this is what I wanted to share with you. If you like what you heard, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and leave some comments in the comment section below. I'll see you next time. If you subscribe to the channel, you will be notified about when the next video will be issued. Okay, thanks and goodbye.